Everything you need to know to have your best race at Santa Cruz 70.3 in 10 minutes or less. First up, this is a big race. They pack a lot of people on course, and it's a very small check-in area, so this check-in line can get really, really long. I recommend you try and get there earlier in the day or expect to be waiting in a pretty long line. Parking. Transition and the check-in area are at Depot Park. There is some free parking on Saturday, south end of Chestnut Street, but most of it you'll have to pay. On Sunday, you'll be able to park for free anywhere along Chestnut Street. I've had great luck finding parking here the morning of if you get there early. It's a pretty long walk to the swim start, so you may want to bring a second pair of shoes if you have a Sherpa. I brought a second pair of shoes, hid them along the beach, and they were gone when I came back after the finish. Swim course, you're going to start on the east side of the pier, swim straight out and around the pier, and come back in. The water temperature is a cool 63 degrees right now, which is actually pretty warm for this time of year. You'll be swimming during a rising tide, so you should expect a decent amount of swell out around the pier. Now, this area is protected from breakers, so it'll be pretty calm near shore. You won't have to fight much to get into the water, but as you're going out, expect to get some decent swell. The swell is coming from the northwest, headed to the southwest, so you may be feeling a bit of a left pull on the way out and a bit of a right push on the way back in, or just a little bit of a struggle getting back in, but I think most of all, it's going to be a pretty simple swim with just a little bit of swell. Something else to keep in mind with this swim is how foggy it typically is in the mornings, and given that the days are getting shorter and it's a pretty early start, I think this is a good swim to have some lightly tinted goggles just in case it is sunny. Here's a picture from 2018. I'll run you through these. You can see just how foggy it is. It's kind of an intimidating swim start if you're not used to the ocean because the water's murky and cold. And like I said, it's kind of dark with the first light really being right before you get into the water. You can see here, this is coming back in. This was a very fast day in 2018. You can see no swell. If there's no swell, the swim is pretty fast. In fact, year to year, it's probably 100, 150 meters short. So if you're not getting a swell, expect a pretty fast swim time. Long transition run into T1. They will allow you to drop some shoes at the end of the sand. Plus they'll have kiddie pools that you can dip your feet in. However, your feet are going to be so cold, you're probably not really going to feel the pain of running on the pavement all the way into transition. And this transition is on a turf field. So you're going to pick up those little black rubber balls, even if you do rinse your feet off before you start pavement run. The bike course, even with a TT start, this bike course feels kind of crowded at the start, regardless of how fast you are. The road is pretty narrow. It doesn't look very twisty here, but it actually is just gentle little curves along the ocean. Now this year, you're not doing the exact same course. You have to turn inland a bit earlier and avoid this section on the bike because they're doing some construction given the massive amount of rains California got this last winter. So you'll turn inland early, take a left, and hook up at the same spot. Generally speaking, the roads are in really good condition, especially Highway 1, and they do a great job with course control. So you're not going to see many cars at all. They try and close it off to local traffic. You'll see a handful of 18-wheelers making deliveries, but again, they do a really good job of course control for this race. The bike course is gently rolling the entire time. There's really not any flat area to speak of on the entire course. And there's really only one larger hill that you're going to have to contend with. I think when I did it, it was the only time I got into the little chain ring the entire course. So it's a pretty fast course if it's not windy. Speaking of the wind is going to be coming from the northwest. So you'll have a gentle to building headwind on the way out. It's only listed at 5 miles an hour when most of you will be racing, but it can feel like a lot more when you're right on the water. So again, depending on the year, the bike course can either be really, really fast or pretty hard given the wind. But either way, when you hit the turnaround, you're going to have a tailwind all the way home. I said before that this is a pretty big race, so expect for the middle to back of the pack for this highway to be pretty crowded, as in a lot of drafting. One of the frustrating things when maybe you're racing a friend or just generally racing and you hit this turnaround and you start to see the massive draft packs as you're riding back and they're riding out, that's just going to be a reality. It's a reality of most 70.3s, but especially this one where there's no climbing to speak of to really break anything up. So expect large draft packs for the middle to back of this course. The front end of the field spaces out pretty nicely. The run is the same as years past. They didn't change it. You're going to run out the way you rode, but you're going to continue on. Instead of turning inland early, you're going to continue on this nice, windy, narrow road right along the ocean with the $1 million homes. Once you turn inland, you're going to hit some rolling hills. So on the way out, you just have one short, steep hill right out of transition, and then it's pretty flat. Again, not truly pancake flat, just gentle up and downs, a few feet of elevation gain and loss at a time along the coast. Once you turn inland, you're going to hit a couple of punchy steeper hills. Now, the real interesting part of this course is the loop through the nature preserve by Wilder Ranch. They don't allow aid stations on this loop because of litter. So you're going to hit your last aid station for the loop right about here. And it's almost a 2-mile loop. Even if it's foggy in the morning, that fog is going to break at some point, and it generally feels pretty darn hot on this run. This is also a hard, as in firm, dirt surface run. Firm, hard dirt with a little bit of sand on top. So it's a little slippery, it's uneven. It's not a technical trail, but it's also not a bike path. Be a little bit careful, try not to sprain an ankle. In general, you'll probably run about 30 seconds a mile slower on this loop than you do for the rest of the run. It's just short, steep up downs, like I said, loose surface, and you're not going to have a chance to splash any water on you for the duration of the loop. So when you start the loop, just keep that in mind, pace it out. You'll hit that aid station as soon as you finish the loop. On the way back, you go back through those punchy hills. Best part about this course is you finish this last kicker of a hill, you come back to the coast, and you start to get that coastal breeze, and it's pretty darn flat all the way home, the last 2.5 miles, finishing with a steep downhill into a short run on the sand. And it is pretty deep sand. You're running through sand like this for 10 to 20 yards. Yeah, there's a good one. You're going to have to finish through the sand. So if you're racing a good friend of yours down at the end, know that coming up and try and get the kick a little bit early, because neither of you are going to be sprinting very well in the sand.